Welcome to UFOs over Pittsburgh. I'm your host, John Ventry. I'm the Pennsylvania State Director for the Mutual UFO Network. Our guests today are Fred Saluga, who's the West Virginia State Director and the Western Pennsylvania State Director, along with Bill Weber, who we're Skyping in from Philadelphia. And today's topic is identified flying objects. Well, Fred, today we have William Weber, Bill Weber, who we refer to. He's our chief investigator for Pennsylvania and Delaware. We have him on Skype today. This is our first Skype guest that we've had on. Bill, how you doing out there in Chester, PA, the other side of the state?
Chester County, PA.
Yeah, how are things?
Yeah, we're doing fine out here, John. It's bright and sunny. Humidity is down, so it's bearable. So you don't have to live within air conditioning to survive the day.
Yeah, it's going to be a really nice couple of days. So, Fred, how you like my new haircut? I cut it all off. I was in Myrtle Beach for 5 days with my kids, so I got a tan. I cut all my hair off.
That looks good, John.
Does it? It looks all gray is what it looks,
looks good,
when you
John.
cut it all off. So, all right, Bill, today we're going to talk about identified flying objects. And you being our chief investigator for MUFON, so tell the audience, what makes up an identified flying object and a UFO, and it's all yours, so fill us in.
Okay. Well, basically, as you know, with MUFON, anytime someone witnesses something, we recommend that they contact our headquarters to file a report, and which they do. In Pennsylvania, we get an average of about maybe 30, 35 reports a month, and the last couple of months it's been getting ridiculous. I mean, we're seeing 70, 80 reports coming in. That's
because of the TV show, right? Because of the Hangar 1 TV show.
I believe Hangar 1 is definitely precipitating a lot of those calls and reports coming in, because people are now aware that they don't have to file a report for something recent. They can go back in several years to report something they had witnessed, but they didn't have any place to report it to, and they were afraid of ridicule and stuff. Now a lot of people are coming forward, which we appreciate. And what I'm trying to do here is educate the public, at least within the states that I'm responsible for Pennsylvania and Delaware, educate them that some of the stuff that they're seeing in the skies and that they're reporting are not necessarily UFOs, but are IFOs. And of the reports that come in, I would say, John, that probably about 80% of those reports can be identified as man-made or natural objects. So by educating the public, they then can understand a little bit more about what they're seeing, and perhaps not necessarily go through the gymnastics of reporting something if they're looking at a star, let's say.
Hey, Bill, would you say that as far as the misidentifications go, do you think most are satellites? Are they airplanes? What do you think that most people are misidentifying? What do they actually turn out to be?
Oh boy, there's a whole host of different things that they can be, John.
Like?
As an example, okay, some of the, there's two types of phenomenon out there. There's either a natural phenomenon or there's a man-made phenomenon, okay? And the natural phenomenon that are being reported You know, it could be stars or planets or meteors or bolides, comets, the moon actually, and then there's the phenomenon surrounding the moon, like moon dogs or sun dogs. And I'll explain a little bit what they are. And these are the natural phenomena that are coming in. Now, as far as man-made stuff, you know, there's satellites, there's the space station, the ISS. There are blimps out there. There's aircraft, both military and commercial. There's we're seeing LED kites coming in, drones. We're seeing signs being towed behind aircraft, balloons. The big one is Chinese lanterns, and we see a lot of those around the 4th of July. Sometimes a lot of stuff not necessarily even in the sky, like reflections from a camera on a camera lens or lens flare, and then maybe even reflection off a glass. So these are some of the natural, man-made things that are coming in that eventually we can sit down and research and determine what they were.
Yeah, you know, Bill, I've done a couple of the larger UFO conferences, and there have been people at the conferences with the real high-end night vision goggles, and they will charge, you know, for a sky watch after the conference is over, and, you know, it might be $40, and you get to use the night vision goggles and look up, and, you know, invariably every time, well, they see something in the sky, but I'm thinking they're seeing satellites is what they're seeing with the night vision, because if you've ever looked up at the sky, I mean, Fred, I have a monocular one that I use, and you look up at the sky, it's incredible. The entire sky is lit up with stars, but then they'll see something come across. I think they're seeing mostly satellites when they use those goggles.
Well, when we had the one case, I'm not mentioning any names.
Yeah.
But the night vision that was being used there, we was actually seeing eye shine of animals.
Oh, well, that too, yeah.
Birds.
Yeah.
That's why we had the little Twinkies flying around.
Yeah,
there.
you look into the woods and you see,
Right, you see the eye
you
shine
see
and
the
you can
eyes
actually
looking
pick it
back
up.
at you.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's a problem also. But I think a lot, because there's a tour out in the Southwest that takes you to Sedona and a bunch of places, and then they look up and, you know, they use the night vision, and I think those people are paying money for this, and they're really only seeing satellites, because there's, I don't know how many thousands of satellites coming over, you know. And I wonder, Bill, do satellites only move in one direction, let's say from west to east, or do satellites also go?
No.
What was that?
No, they go multiple, west to east, east to west, north to south.
Okay.
And there is tools that we as investigators use to determine at a specific location. You can put yourself at a location on a computer and then view the sky over a period of time.
Right.
And you can see the activity in the sky. One of those tools is Stellarium. That is a very powerful tool that you just put in your coordinates, and then you can just look at the sky and see the things, the movement of stuff that are occurring. And also you can use that for identifying some of the objects that appear to be just, oh, it's just sitting there hovering. Okay, well, sitting there hovering could be a star or a planet. Okay, and you know what we do in using Stellarium, those objects there are identified as to what they are. As an example, like with a star, okay, some of the stars that have been reported as UFOs are Sirius, Arcturus, Vega, and Betelgeuse. Okay. Some of the planets that have been reported as UFOs are Venus, Jupiter, Mars, and Saturn. And you could sit there and watch these things over time, and you'll see the exact path that they're going through as the Earth is rotating. So, again, these are some of the tools that we use to identify and during our investigation. And again, this is a natural phenomenon. This is not a UFO.
Bill, have you ever seen a UFO?
I myself have not seen a UFO. I've experienced an anomaly, but not a UFO.
Yeah, I've never seen a UFO either, but I'll give an example. I thought I did. It was June 28th, 2008, when we were having the big UFO wave across the state. I let my two Dobermans out the front door. They were well trained, so I didn't have to worry about them running off or eating the neighbor's dog. And all of a sudden, something catches my attention. I see this bright object moving across the sky. I thought I saw my first UFO. But then it went behind a cloud and it disappeared. It was so bright. I said, wow, I should have been able to see it through the cloud. So the first thing I did, like a good field investigator, I went in, I got on the program, I put in, the zip code and the time, and there it is. A small asteroid passed by. It was exactly 10:28 p.m. on June 28th. And then I was saying, you know what? The moon was on my right in the west. This was high up in the northeast sky. And since, most of these asteroids, they're metal, they're iron ore, it just reflected the light was all it did. So, I mean, there's a good example that I thought I saw one, but I didn't. It was a natural object.
Right, and again, like with meteors and bolides, like a meteor, we know when they're coming because they announce it on the news media saying, oh, we're going to be seeing a meteor shower on, June 21st or something. Everybody goes outside. And you can easily identify a meteor because they tend to go across, very quickly, and they tend to fizzle out. Now, a bolide basically you could classify it as a meteor. However, it's coming in, and rather than just fizzle out, it gets incredibly hot because of the travel through the atmosphere, and it tends to blow up or explode. And as a result, it's much, much, much brighter. And these things get reported as a UFO.
Yeah. It's interesting. You learn a lot with these investigations and even some of the books I wrote. Asteroids come in from outer space at an average of 30,000 miles per hour. And they lose 90% of their velocity in our atmosphere because of the resistance. And most, when they hit the ground, they're hitting the ground at about 3,000 miles an hour. And I guess it depends. Some come in, some are moving very slowly, but your average asteroid comes in at 30,000 miles an hour and hits at 3,000 miles an hour. And then if you're into physics, you can figure out mass and velocity and all of that. And they're devastating. Go ahead, Bill.
And then when they do hit the ground, they're coming in the size of pebbles and such.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey,
right.
well, you know what? Let's ask Fred. Have you ever seen anything in the sky? Have you seen a UFO?
No.
Yeah.
I've seen things, but I can't really say what they were.
Yeah. I mean, I've had things happen on the paranormal side of things.
I have too.
I've read that 30% of people have some sort of unexplained paranormal activity,
Right.
and it's 14% of people have seen something in the sky they can't explain. But like you said, Bill, of the 14%, we're probably only talking about 1% that's an actual UFO. The rest are identifiable.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Bill.
I lost you, I think, John.
Yeah.
I'm not certain.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill. Continue telling us about the different sites you use.
Oh, yeah. Heavens Above is one. ISS Tracker is another one, where I actually was viewing that site, and it indicated that the space station would be going over my area on a certain date and time. And I went outside, and I was very fortunate to see that they were actually flying a supply ship up to it. So you saw two bright objects, where the one object was the space station itself, and one right behind it, following very close, was the supply ship that was coming to drop off. So I tried getting all my neighbors out there to see this stuff, and of course they all looked at me like I was crazy, but I enjoyed seeing that,
Yeah.
Yeah, and also another man-made object that you see out there besides that is every now and again NASA will launch a rocket or so out of Wallops Island. And of course we hear all about that when we get our reports coming in as well. And the intent here is because we get hit with so many reports that I want to try and educate. So I'm putting together a PowerPoint presentation that I will be doing in libraries and other venues to try and educate the public that everything you see up in the sky is not necessarily a UFO. And I think that hopefully the public will appreciate that and, not be so apprehensive when they see something and say, oh my God, look what we saw,
Hey, Bill, one of our MUFON people is working on a program that will take the sky and eliminate everything that's known in the sky. It'll eliminate all the stars. It'll tap into like the FAA, whatever the flights are, eliminate all the airplanes. It eliminates everything that we know of, everything that's an incoming boloid, asteroid, meteor, et cetera. So it's going to clear everything out that's known. And then when somebody has a UFO sighting, or it picks up something, this will be something that's untracked. It could be an untracked meteor or asteroid or a UFO. I think, is that a great idea?
Yeah.
You take everything that's already been on all these programs, eliminate them all.
Right.
Every plane that we know is following a route, and then you're just going to look for the objects that's unknown. I think that's a pretty cool idea. But that's coming out shortly with MUFON, and we're the only ones that have that.
Well, I was going to say, when is that coming out? Because I'd like to distribute that to my team out here.
Yeah, I think that's coming out very shortly. I know it's right on the cusp of coming out.
Right, right. Yeah, the other thing too now with the inrush of all of these reports, and I'm thinking, logistics. With the inrush of all of these reports, that can range anywhere from 30 to 70 plus reports a month coming in. We have a limited team here. We have basically about maybe 30 investigators covering the state of Pennsylvania. And essentially each one of these investigators is, responsible for an area, because we have 67 counties that need to be covered. And when there multiple reports come in, they're running around like crazy people, chasing stuff down like a satellite or a star or something. And I'd rather they use their time for going after the real stuff. Thus, the education part of this whole scenario is to try to eliminate some of those reports that are coming in, okay, that we know what they are right off the front. And then we can spend our time going after the stuff that is really unidentified.
Yeah, well, I think, when I went to
Aren't they supposed to be looking at that now?
Yeah, I was about to say that. They're going to start a team, and a state can opt in or opt out. If you have enough investigators, they're going to look at all those lights in the sky, and they'll have like a phone center with people. They'll do what you're doing, and they'll say like this one is a star, this one's a bolide, this one's an asteroid. So they're going to eliminate a lot of those lights in the sky that, burden us from being able to look at the real good stuff. And if we don't want to be part of it, we can opt out of it, because we're one of the few states that do have 30 plus investigators. So
Right.
yeah, so that's another thing that we're doing.
Right, yeah, I wrote an article, I don't know where it's going to be placed, but supposedly it's going to be put into the August Journal that speaks to this very subject, and I don't know where it's going to be located within the journal, but you'll see what I'm coming from with this whole scenario.
Yeah.
So, again, this is some of the stuff, and then we investigate. Now, some of the other stuff is if you're out in an area like in Pittsburgh, where you do have a little bit more hills and valleys and such than we do over here in the Philadelphia area. All right, sometimes some of the lights that people are seeing are actually headlights from the roads up in the mountains, okay, during the evening. And we need to differentiate that as well. Camera lens and camera flare. People take pictures through windows or through the windshield, and it could be reflections of objects that are showing up that, one of the things is, hey, I took these pictures of these things in the sky, but I didn't see this when I took the pictures. Well, the reason you didn't see it, it was a reflection off of your windshield. And, we have analysts out here that take that and they look, byte by byte, pixel by pixel to figure out what it is that they saw. But it's time consuming, and you got to be made aware if you're going to take pictures of something, don't take it through glass, get out of the car or whatever and take it real time.
And then you got to steady the camera too. You got to put it on the hood, or people don't go around with tripods. But
Right.
if you don't have it steady, all you're going to get is that point of light being dragged, and then you think you got an object, and it's really not.
Right, and the other thing too is there's this phenomenon which is very normal. It's called autokinesis. Okay, that if you stare at a bright object for a long period of time, by looking at it, your eyes will create the object to be darting around and moving and stuff. So if you're staring at a planet like Venus or something for a long period of time, it will look like it's jumping around out there, but it really isn't. It's autokinesis.
Yeah, it's
The
same
other
thing.
thing-
Same thing when you drive in the car. If you keep looking up at a star, it gets the impression that it's moving also, and it's not.
Looks like the
It's
stars.
not, right, exactly. And the thing too is they say, well, this thing is hovering over here. I see it moving and it's hovering over me, okay? Well, the reason it's hovering over you, it could be an airplane and it's flying towards you. If it's flying towards you with its landing lights on, it's gonna look like it's hovering over you, okay? If it's turning or something, then you'll see the light obviously turn. But if it's coming straight at you, it's gonna appear like it's sitting there in the sky just hovering above you. I see this a lot on the PA Turnpike with aircraft coming in either to Philadelphia or coming into the Air Force Base over here, you know, Willow Grove. The other thing is now drones. Speaking of Willow Grove is a base that they're going to be, I guess, staging drones over there, okay? So you're going to see a lot of that stuff coming on. And now some of the major airports like Kennedy are complaining that there's a lot of drone activity around the airports, which is very dangerous because you could force a major airliner crash by running these things into the engines.
Yeah, if it sucks a drone into the engine exhaust, you're going to blow the engine out. That's probably $30 million to replace an engine if the plane doesn't crash, too.
Right.
Not necessarily, yeah. Plus, you're talking perhaps a loss of life, God forbid. So, you know, now I don't know if people out here have seen sun dogs or moon dogs or even know what they are. But basically, it's when the sun is setting or the moon is low, okay, you'll get a phenomenon that the light is reflected through the ice crystals in the atmosphere, and as a result, you'll see almost a mirror image of the moon or the sun located either directly to the left or to the right, okay? And people have misidentified those things as, well, look, there was a UFO over there to the left of the moon, okay? And they're quite, they can be seen anywhere in the world, not necessarily here in the U.S. And the reason I mention it is because that's another phenomenon that is a natural phenomenon.
Okay.
And we know about Chinese lanterns. God, do we know about Chinese lanterns?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, my first encounter with the Chinese lantern was 2008, again with that whole wave over was in Langhorne at the Oxford Valley Mall where people were seeing it. So, you know, what we did was the Discovery Channel had gotten involved right at the same time. And we went, well, what happened was somebody went to the newspaper and said, I can explain this whole thing. I just opened up a fireworks store and it's Chinese lanterns. So that was the article and it was on the TV news and everybody said, oh, okay, solved. I said, wait a minute. I went out there and what we did was we went to the store. It's really interesting, Fred. You know, you think a reporter would have done the legwork instead of just accepting the Chinese lantern. We went to the store. We bought 6 of them. And I said to him, what color do the Chinese lanterns come in? And he goes, no, they're just white. And, you know, they kind of have maybe an orange tint because of the thing is burning. I said, well, wait a minute. People reporting blue lights, green lights, red lights. Where are your blue, green, and red Chinese lanterns? He didn't have any. Right. So then I said to him, when did you open up your store? Oh, we just got the store opened on July 2nd, right before the 4th of July rush to sell everything. I said, well, people are reporting this in April, May, and June. So how could it be the Chinese lantern when you weren't even open? I mean, it was amazing. The reporters in the area didn't do any homework. They accepted the explanation. You know, it's almost like this Malaysia Flight 370. They found a flap from a wing and 1,000 miles from where they thought the plane went down, and they're saying, this is it. Well, there's no serial numbers. There's nothing identifying it to this plane.
I don't think it is, no.
But, okay, I was going to say, they're going to come out and say, this is it. But you know what? If we presented that as proof for a UFO, and that's all we had, you'd be a laughing stock because the media says this is it, this is it. So then the thing we did was we gathered all the witnesses, and this was cool. We had about 8 or 10 of the witnesses there. We went late at night after the mall shut down, the Oxford Valley Mall, and we lit up the 6 and we held them and we sent them all up at the same time, like when they do the balloon show. And you saw them go up, you know, they only go maybe 300 feet, 400 feet. They don't go that high. They only stay lit for 2-3 minutes, and then they start coming down. And then you're saying to yourself, I hope I don't set somebody's house on fire. But, you know, and I said, that's it. So then we asked the witnesses, is this what you saw? They were all very offended. They said, you know, for anybody to say that's what we saw, we didn't see a Chinese lantern. They were actually, they were offended to say, the media says this is what it is. And they did no homework on the whole phenomenon.
But I think the whole thing is, when you talk the 4th of July, that's automatically what people think are Chinese lanterns.
Right, because it's that time
Because
frame.
it's that
But
time
these
of year.
cases were prior to the 4th of July.
I mean, then you look at them totally different. I mean, you know.
All you had to do was ask the guy, when did you open the store?
Right.
July 2nd. Well, how does that explain the cases from April, May, and June? It doesn't explain it at all. So, all right, Bill, what else you got going on identified and unidentified? What's the key stuff you want the audience to know about this?
Well, just be cognizant that, if anything, just be cognizant that everything you see up there is not necessarily a UFO. That's the first thing, okay? Educate yourself, you know, do your own research on this stuff. If, you know, go to these websites they're not locked in and they're free, okay? You can go to Stellarium, you can go in Heavens Above, and you can go to the ISS tracker and stuff. Go to these things, you might enjoy what you're seeing there, and you'll get some information. Now, obviously, if you see something that, you know, is truly an anomaly, or something that, you know, is moving very quickly across the sky, a zigzag pattern, a landing, or a takeoff, or whatever, obviously, fill in, you know, the report. Don't be afraid to file your report so that we can then step in and start an investigation on it. But at the same time, be available so that when you do file a report, that you are open to being questioned by an investigator. Make yourself available to be part of the investigative process. Don't just fall off the planet, because that takes time as well. We're supposed to contact you within like 24 to 72 hours from the time that the report comes in. And if you're not there, or you're not answering the phone, or you're not answering emails, it's a waste of our time where we could be focusing on something else.
Bill.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hey, Bill, why don't you, if you get a chance, why don't you do this? Why don't you put a couple of them sites up on our MUFON, Pennsylvania MUFON website? So if people really want to, they could go on a website and look and find it.
I think they are there. Aren't they on the website, Bill? MUFON
Yeah,
PA?
there are links to these
Tools.
sites on our PA MUFON website.
Yeah, it's on tools. If you click up top to the right, there's one that
Well,
says
explain that
tools.
to 'em.
Yeah, go on MUFONPA.com. Top right box says tools. You hit on it, and those 10 or 12 sites are there.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Bill, unfortunately, time flies. That's all we got for today, and we appreciate you getting on a Skype call. It saved us a lot of gas money driving you in from Philly, but it worked fine. And we proved that we can now Skype in some of our guests on the show, and we could have some of the bigger names in if they'll Skype with us, Stanton Friedman,
Right,
et cetera.
right, right.
So thanks for being on, Bill, and Fred, that's our show for today.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the time you gave me to allow me to speak about something I'm very passionate about. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
All right, thanks, Bill.
Bye-bye now.